Alright, my name is Hiram Shelton, and this is my video on Section 1983 litigations. So basically, a Section 1983 litigation is a lawsuit that is completely allowed to take place when a police officer or a judge or pretty much any government employee breaks the law while they are acting or doing their duty as their job, as what they've been hired to do. And basically, the history of Section 1983 is actually was known as the Ku Klux Klan Act, and this was because it came in 1871 at a time when a lot of newly freed slaves were not being given their due process rights. To say it better, the legislative purpose was to provide a federal remedy in federal court because the state governments and courts, by reason of prejudice, passion, neglect, intolerance, or otherwise, were unwilling to enforce the due process rights of blacks guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. And that was actually found in the Monroe versus Pape case, which I will be talking about here in a minute. But another case, actually, I wanted to cover is the Coon versus United States case. And this was a case that happened in 1991 when Rodney King and his two friends were in a car. They drank and then drove, which is illegal if you drink too much, and which he did. And eventually he stopped for the police. They were ordered to get out and be in a prone position, and he, Mr. King, rejected or denied the to get into a prone position, and the officers used excessive force to get him into a prone position and arrest him. And because of this, he was able to file a Section 1983 litigation, and basically won that litigation. Won the case and was able to be compensated for being mistreated. And so kind of police actions that lead to Section 1983 liability is when police are going against what they've been taught, or doing things in excess, or kind of doing more than what they are supposed to be doing. And that it's most often in using excessive force when it's just unnecessary. And that's kind of what happened in the Coon versus United States case. The officers brought out batons and they physically hurt Mr. King, and they really didn't need to because he was complying. He just wasn't getting into a prone position, and so they could have used force to help him get into a prone position, but they used far beyond what was needed. So the Monroe versus Pape case, which I actually just mentioned, this was a case that happened in 1958 when police officers, including Frank Pape, arrived at James Monroe's Chicago apartment, and they broke down the door, they forced entry, and they did not have a warrant. So Monroe was able to, again, file for the litigation, file for the case, and was able to win and make some money because of the poor decisions of those that were in position to uphold the law, in which they were not acting in unity with their with what they were asked to be doing. Okay, so Section 1983, what it says, it allows individuals to sue government officials, including law enforcement officers, for violations of their constitutional rights. So it states that any person who, under color of law, deprives another person of their federally protected rights. So I wanted to address the term under color of law, and basically what that means is that this person is doing their job. So a police officer that is on duty, or a judge that is currently being a judge of a court, that is the time when one goes against the law, or takes someone's constitutional rights away while they are doing their job. And so lastly, to finish up here, a case of an officer that was involved in a lawsuit or criminal case. My first thought was the George Floyd incident, in which Derek Chauvin was the police officer that kneeled on his neck, and eventually George Floyd lost his life. And my first thought was this a Section 1983 litigation? And looking it up, it was. So basically, Derek Chauvin went beyond what his training was. And by kneeling on his neck, he was actually doing what he had been taught, which they were hoping to, they called it a restriction rather than a choke. But because of his action and because of the death of George Floyd, the police officers all ended up getting charged criminally, and Chauvin actually is now facing decades in prison. And the police department is changing, and actually has to change the way they train, so that police officers no longer use that type of force as a way to get someone down. And so yeah, it's really important to understand Section 1983. It's important for officers to be doing their best and making sure that when they are in the wrong, that they're not too in the wrong, that they're not using too excessive force, but that they're simple mistakes that their police department can cover in terms of court, and so that they're not being charged personally. And yeah, thanks. That's my video.